Is it Sunan? Right.
Peter Sonnenschein.
Peter Sonnenschein. Okay, great. What town do you live in?
Phoenix.
Awesome. And are you doing teleradiology right now, or are you?
I am not.
Oh, cool.
I'm not. I'm kind of looking around for things.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome. And then we have Ed. Somebody named Ed there. We can't see more than that. That's all we see.
It might be me. Hey, Eric Davis. It might be me.
Hey, Eric. How you doing?
Hey, Dr. Davis.
How's it going? Thanks for joining.
Good. I'm gonna have you on in the background while I'm getting back to the office.
Sure, no worries. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. We'll give a few minutes for other people to join, and then
How's things in Dallas, Dr. Davis?
I think we're in the background for him. Yeah.
Oh.
I had it on mute for a second. No, it's fine. It's busy, and it's actually finally getting fall weather here, so it's nice for a change.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. The colors here in Chicago started turning, so it's like you get the reds and the oranges and the yellows all so going there. All right, so we have 350 radiologists on our list, and we'll see who else will join.
So, Dr. Sonnenschein, what is your specialty?
Sonnenschein.
Sonnenschein. Sorry.
Shine.
Yeah, I've only got part of my name up there. No problem.
Oh, okay, I got you.
There's an NE at the end. That's a remnant of the old days when you could only fit 7 letters into your computer
That's
name.
right. Yes.
When I was in med school, that was the only one I could that they would allow me was Sonnenschein. I just kept it my whole life.
I love it.
That's great.
Neuroradiology. I'm neuroradiology. I've done. I spoke with you, Dr. Shami, a while ago.
Oh yes, I
do
recall now.
I do neurointerventional.
That's right. I remember the conversation. Yes.
But I am predominantly looking for diagnostic neurorads at this point. And
Great. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, let's see. We'll give it a few more minutes. We got 4 more minutes, so people may still be getting settled in and hopefully joining here soon. Yeah, we plan on having these, semi-weekly or or possibly weekly. So this is just an opportunity for anyone who's interested in teleradiology to interact with us and our staff and get questions answered and that sort of thing, and just talk about teleradiology in general. That's the idea.
awesome. I may have to leave shortly. I just figured I saw the email come up and I'm here. I would just
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're currently exploring for Telerad neuro, Dr. Sonnenschein?
Yeah, I'm looking for different kinds of opportunities. One of them being Telerad. I've never done it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an interesting time right now because we get a fair number of calls from radiologists who work on site who've never done Telerad before. Now they're looking at coming into the Telerad world, and they're exploring options. So there's a lot of different ways you can go, and yeah, I mean it's a great time to actually be in radiology.
Yeah, I saw you had a lot of opportunities in Arizona. Actually, you must be contracting with hospitals in Arizona.
Yes, Arizona is a big state for us. Texas, Illinois, New York, California, Florida. These are all big states for us, and Ohio as well. There's more happening.
Indiana coming up.
Yeah. Indiana as well. Yeah. So I'll give it a couple more minutes and then
So you can see our team behind us here. So I'm Rhonda.
yeah, let's do some intros.
Yeah, go ahead, guys. You can.
Go
Dr.
ahead.
Davis knows you all, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Heather. Hi, I'm Jennifer Carberry, or Jen Jr.
That makes me Jen Senior.
Yeah, that's Jen Senior. Yeah. And I'm Dr. Sami, obviously, and then we have Rhonda here behind me.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you all. Thanks for
Yeah.
making the time for us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining. We have a new radiologist to join, Dr. Xavier, is that right? Is it?
Yes, hi. I'm
Hi,
actually
how are
in the
you?
middle of a shift, but I saw this email and I wanted to listen in. But
Yeah.
would you mind if I put mute because I don't want you all to be hearing my dictations?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. If you want to ask questions, feel free to,
Okay.
jump in because this is just a casual session. It's question and answer. There's no fixed agenda. So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're just gonna have a casual conversation about teleradiology. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
Looking forward to hearing.
awesome. So I think it's like right at 2 o'clock now, right? 1 minute, and see who else will join, and then we'll get started here. So, Dr. Xavier, where are you at right now?
So this is my home office. I'm in the suburb of Houston.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, that's great. That's great. What and you're doing teleradiology, or you work on site somewhere as well?
Yeah, actually, Teleradiology. I've been doing it for almost 5 years now from my
Okay.
home office.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome. Great. Well, it's 2 o'clock, and so let's get started. So I just want to welcome everybody here to this first question and answer session that we're doing. Plan to do a lot more of these. My name is Dr. Sami. I'm the CEO of Chicago Telerad. Behind me is Rhonda Clark. She's our practice manager. And then we have Jen Senior, who's wearing the black, and that she's wearing.
Hello.
And then Jen Junior and Heather, and that's our staff here. We just wanted to open this up to question and answers right now. And if Xavier, if you want to start with a question, or Dr. Sunshine or Eric, anything you can think of that you want to know about teleradiology, feel free to ask us.
I was just very curious about how you use scribes. I've never seen that in radiology.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, let's start with Scribe. So in the teleradiology world, there's kind of been the paradigm in radiology in general is like using voice recognition to create reports. So let me take you back before voice recognition. So before voice recognition, we just dictated everything into a telephone line, and then a transcriptionist would record that or transcribe that all remotely somewhere, disparate from when you actually dictated. So it wasn't a real-time transcription like a scribe would do real time. You would dictate the case, and then they would type it out maybe minutes or hours later. And then at night, you may have 100, 150 reports assigned at night. With the scribes, what we do is the radiologists will be working contemporaneously with the scribe in the workstation. So as you're talking, you have a scribe who's working with you in real time and will create your report using the PowerScribe macros that you have. So this actually allows you to work in parallel on different workstations at the same time. It increases your efficiency. So if you think about, like if an ER doctor comes to you and wants to review a case, and let's say it's a CT brain, scrolling through that brain, what you're going to say, like, if it's positive or negative. Basically, you can tell them in about 30 seconds to a minute what's going on. Is there an infarct? Is there a bleed? Is there something else going on? But then when the ER doctor walks away, it's going to take you another 2-3 minutes to dictate the case and put all that. So we compress that time to just the time it takes you to analyze the images, and the scribe will do the rest, right? So while one scribe is creating that in a workstation, you'll have another workstation you can go to in our workflow. You can dictate another complicated, say, chest, abdomen, pelvis, and they just record everything you say. And all you have to do is scroll, zoom, and pan, and they'll create your reports using your macros, right? So by the time you're done dictating in that workstation, your other report is populating on the first one for the CT brain, and so on and so forth. So I've worked in my workflow, I have 6 workstations in parallel with 6 scribes working, and it also allows for another human intelligence factor to come into play. So you have another human double checking your work, making sure you answer the clinical question, making sure the contrast dose, the radiation dose, all that is in place, and making you more efficient. So allows you, the radiologist, to keep your eyes on the images where they should be. And then somebody else will create the reports, and then you can review both of them side by side. So I look at everything on big 55-inch monitors. So there's plenty of real estate for the image and the report to sit side by side, so I can look at it and then tell them if there's any corrections if needed. So yeah, that's kind of the base in a nutshell, the basics of the Scribe workflow. How do you, like, you've only used voice recognition, right, Dr. Xavier?
Yes, just I've used Power Scribe and Dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think almost all radiologists are using some form of Power Scribe and macros and whatnot. So the Scribe model really allowed us to increase our efficiency tremendously. It allowed us to open up additional streams of income as opposed to just working on one workstation. Now you're able to work on 2, 3, 4, 5 workstations in parallel, because your time is really just focused on image analysis. So, and the return on investment of Scribes is very high. So every dollar you spend on a Scribe, they're going to return you $9 of radiology revenue, is our metrics that we figured out.
Well, I also think the other aspect of the Scribe model is you have built-in quality control right there. So your scribes are looking for your recons, your tech sheets, making sure all the priors are there, the relevant history is there, the contrast is there, contrast dose. So built-in quality control, that's another aspect of the Scribe model.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the name of the game really right now is efficiency, right? So anything we can do to decrease radiologist stress and increase radiologist productivity and efficiency is only going to help. And everything is moving more and more toward what else can we get out of the radiologist workflow. Great, and we have another radiologist joined, Scott Wend. Can you hear us? You may be muted. Yeah. Yeah, and there's one more radiologist who just joined. Looks like Dr. Michael Pack-Damon. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining.
How are you?
Great.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, we just got started. We just talked about scribes and how that works. This is just a very casual session, and we're just answering any questions about teleradiology you may have. So if you have a question, go ahead and shoot.
I had a question about your your hourly pay scale. It's different rates.
Yeah.
Do you sign up for one, and then if you are able to produce more, you can get into those higher hourlies, or can you start off right from the bat, and then if you don't produce that much, you can go down? How does it work?
You won't go down. So we can talk to you individually about specific scenarios, but I'll just talk in generalities about our compensation model a little bit. We go by the hourly compensation model. So it's not necessarily RVU based, meaning we're not looking to extract every last bit of pound of flesh from you for every minute that you're working, right? So we say, like, if you're covering a site from, so let's say 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., you get X amount of dollars guaranteed hourly pay. As long as you're doing all the things you should be doing as a professional, you know, getting the stats done, making phone calls where appropriate, doing the things that we've always done as radiologists, that's generally fine. We do it by site. So if you cover one site, you get an X hourly rate. If you cover another site, you get a second hourly rate. You know, possibly 1, 2, or 3 sites. So the sites like it as well because they're able to get to know you as a radiologist, as opposed to, you know, reading for 150 sites. Some of the big box companies will credential 100, 150 sites plus. You'll only be at a very small number of sites. So you get to know the staff, they get to know you. It's a reasonable amount of workload at each site. So it's not the traditional kind of RVU, eat what you kill, do as much as you can. We kind of were geared, I grew up on the whole RVU based pay-per-click model back in the Nighthawk days, and then we got bought by VRAD. And I mean, that's okay. I think it creates some unwanted behaviors, in my opinion, in radiologists, cherry picking, cases getting bounced around from rad to rad and whatnot. And everybody's kind of looking for that very low-hanging fruit and just going after those cases. So the way we've structured is we say, look, if it takes you 20 minutes to do a complicated CT chest, abs, and pelvis, we're not going to penalize you for that. Like, you're still getting paid guaranteed hourly for that. So now our radiologists will take on those more difficult cases. They're not just going for the negative CT brains and clearing those out. So we feel that it has a lot of positive benefits to just doing a guaranteed hourly income and covering by site, as opposed to trying to get people to read more and more in the same amount of time. So does that answer your question? Did I answer that, or was it something different you're asking?
No, that answers it somewhat.
Yeah. Does that seem fair? I mean, let us know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think based on what I understand about it, it seemed to be dependent on number of studies that you read in general, the number of studies that you could read during that hour. And I would think the more plain films you get, obviously, the more studies you can read. Whereas if you're reading CTs and MRs, you're going to read less.
Yeah, so the general guideline we have is 10 to 12 cases an hour, 60% plain film, 30% CT, 8% ultrasound, and 2% MRI. So, that's kind of what overall our practice, what, radiologists are doing for the types of hospitals that we contract with. So we're not encouraging you to just read plain films. We're saying take a general mix of cases. And as long as you're kind of falling somewhere in those guidelines, average over a month, right, then it's fine. We never have a problem with radiologists, with the work and whatnot. The hospitals are happy, the radiologists are happy. Sometimes they might be busy, sometimes they might be slow, but it'll kind of just regress to those numbers over time.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Yeah. Anybody else with a question
for you?
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
So is this a 1099 independent contractor, or is it W-2 type of work?
Yeah, great question. I'm a big fan of 1099 independent contractor. One big thing is in the word itself, is independent. I really believe strongly in every radiologist having their own independence and working with a practice because they want to work with the practice, not because they have to work with the practice. When you sign up for a W-2 relationship, you're abdicating some of your independence, and you're giving up some of those abilities to decide things for yourself, right? So you have to ask the questions why does a practice or a company want you to be in a W-2 relationship? They'll give you some benefits, health insurance and, a few things here and there, but really you're giving up complete control. You can't work for anyone else. You have to follow the schedule. I mean, they give you there's a lot of things that go with that. So all of our contracts are 1099 independent contractor. We've had a few requests for W-2, and then when I talk to the radiologists, why do they want W-2? It always comes down to health insurance or some kind of benefit to that effect. But health insurance is easy to get. I mean, it's not difficult. Retirement plans you can set up on your own as well. I mean, a good accounting firm and a financial planning firm can help you do that. Those are not difficult to do. And also think about, if you're a W-2 employee, you're not getting anything for free, right? All those benefits, you're paying for because the employer is getting that from you through your productivity. So yeah, it's just all 1099.
I guess as a follow-up to that, do you find any tax issues when you're reading for clients in Illinois, New York, California, etc., asking for state income tax from those places as compared to where you read from? Yeah,
we have not had that issue ever. I've had that question asked, and my accounting firm has told me that it really depends on the state where you reside in, right, and where you're reading from and where you file your taxes, right? So whatever rules and laws that state has is the rules that you're gonna follow, right? So that's how we've always done it. Every teleradiologist I've talked to has always done it that way. I have not heard of anyone having to pay income tax in other states other than where they reside. Texas, for example, has zero income tax. So, like, you know, according to Texas law, when I lived in Texas, I didn't pay any state income tax. You always have to pay federal income tax. So, but yeah, I haven't heard of anybody paying other income tax in other states. Have you encountered that at all?
My accountant told me that if you have a job in California, doesn't matter where you live, they'll find a way to get you. But I live in California, so they already got me.
They got you.
But that's just kind of what they described, like from their experience. So I don't know anybody that lives outside of California and works for California, so I can't speak personally.
Yeah,
I could speak to that.
go ahead. Yeah, please.
I live in Arizona and I have worked in California, and they are the only state that has taken state taxes out of my 1099 before I get the paycheck. Everybody else leaves it alone. So the California will find you and they will kill you.
So do they, how do they get that from you? Is that whoever's contracting from you will take that and then pay California, or how are they getting it from you?
It was through a locums company, and I've worked for the same locums company in other states, in Virginia and Florida.
Yeah.
And never had state taxes, obviously no state tax in Florida, but never had state taxes taken out until I worked in California. And then the locums company all of a sudden started pulling state taxes out.
So I think there's a little bit of a caveat there, because you're saying the locums company pulled out the state tax. Did they then give you documentation that they were paying state tax to the state of California? And then it was the locums company based in California.
The locums company was not based in California.
Okay.
And I do have documentation of that. You don't end up paying state tax twice.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You'll pay your own states if you have any, and California's, but you don't have to pay twice. You'll get back what you pay. But I don't know what would happen if you were in if you lived in Florida or Nevada or something. I'm not sure if you would still be required to pay California state taxes.
Yeah, we've never had that situation ever in the teleradiology world. It may be a little different on site, like if you're going on site as a locums in the state and working there, you know, for X amount of weeks and months, and there may be a case to be made for that. But all the big box companies I know of, I've never heard of any teleradiologists, if they're reading from whatever fractional percent they're reading for California. I've never heard of anyone having to pay California tax. Like there may be, I don't know, I guess rumors and myths out there about that, but in a teleradiology sense, I haven't heard of it. But yeah, if you guys find anything or know of something, please reach out to me. Be interesting to learn more. But my accountant and our tax planning firm has said we do not need to do anything like that for any state, because it's really done by the state that you reside in. The locum situation might be a little different. The locums company is proactively taking it out up front, as opposed to California sending you a letter asking for, you know, fees. But again, I'm not an accountant or an attorney, so probably a little bit beyond the scope of our expertise. But I mean, check with your CPA. I mean, that's probably the thing to do. Yeah.
I'd like to share my experience with that too.
Yeah.
I did get a letter from California. I read from Texas, and I'd say maybe 10% of the cases I read are California cases. And
really?
Somehow they found out, you know, I have a California medical license, and they sent me a letter. Hey, we think you owe us state taxes. And
wow.
I've been kind of in limbo with that, because I hired some tax attorneys from California. They've been trying to deal with them for the last 2 years, and we don't have a clear answer. Okay,
well, that's something we need to look at then. Yeah, we'll research that and ask our accountant and see, you know, how that needs to transfer. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Anyone else have any other questions?
You mentioned something about the rates stack. Like, do they stack on each other when you're reading from multiple sites?
We can discuss that with you privately. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on rates and whatnot, because we want to make this kind of a little more general, but they do stack, but not the way exactly you think. But we can talk to you about that individually and how that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you supply the workstation equipment, or is there just a minimal requirements? And have you ever heard of any portable workstation, or is that even possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some of our sites will supply the workstation and require radiologists to work off of their equipment. Other sites will just be a software download and a soft VPN, and you can work off of your own equipment. It all depends. I mean, every client site is very, very different. As far as portable setups, I've seen a few. You can get pretty elaborate with like a laptop and portable displays and whatnot. One radiologist I saw, he had like a couple suitcases that were like hard, they were encased and very sturdy, and then he had several laptops within the suitcases, and he would travel, and when he would open up those suitcases, he could deploy 4 or 5 different portable workstations. It was pretty impressive, actually. I mean, the way he did it, and he had managed everything. So it's definitely possible. One thing that we run into is how are you going to connect to the internet if you're, like, say, at a hotel, right? Because Wi-Fi is very spotty. A lot of these systems don't work well over Wi-Fi. You need an Ethernet hardware connection. So if you went to like a shared office space, or you had a house, an Airbnb where you could plug into an Ethernet, I mean, it could work. You could have a portable solution and, you know, have backpack world travel kind of scenario. So it's possible. I haven't personally done that. You know, in my setup, I like to use the big screens. So with the big screens, it's very hard to move stuff around. And so mine is just a stationary type of setup. Yeah.
And I think if Dr. Davis wants to talk to that too, because he's tried it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if Eric. If you
Yeah,
can
so
hear-
you can, so I travel with a laptop, 2 24-inch monitors. The laptop acts as the desktop monitor for dictation and work list. And you just have to be hardwired into an Ethernet port. That's the way I found it to be the most stable. And the Wi-Fi can and can't work. It just depends on the site. If they have a VPN, sometimes the VPN getting to the site won't let you get it through Wi-Fi.
Yep,
You can
exactly.
travel anywhere with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the sites that we had a radiologist who moved locations, and he was hardwired into the Ethernet, but it wouldn't work. And we discovered that the IP address where you log in from, the first time it locks onto that, and it'll only send to that IP. And then if you change locations, you have to tell them about the new IP address. So there's a few little nuances and security things that we've learned over the years, just troubleshooting stuff at 2 in the morning.
Mhm.
Welcome, Dr. Budnick. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, hey,
Hey,
Elliot, how you doing?
Hey, good, thanks. How are you, Dr. Sammy?
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Thanks for joining. Yeah,
Oh,
so we're
thanks
just
for
having a casual question answer discussion here. And
Perfect.
yeah, so we talked about scribes, we talked about workstation, we talked about California taxes. If you have a question, feel free to throw it out there.
Sure will. No, nothing at the moment, but appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had joined right after you talked about scribes. Maybe you can just kind of briefly.
Sure.
rehash.
Yeah. Basically with the scribe model, I mean, the whole idea is to make your stress level go down and to make your productivity go up, right? So if you think about, when you actually look through a set of images, you'll know within 30 seconds, a minute and a half, like say on a non-contrast CT brain, what's going on, right? And you could tell the ER doctor what's going on, but it may take you another 2, 3, 4 minutes to create that report, because there are a lot of bits of information you got to get through. You got to look back and forth to images and report. So the scribe will do all that for you. So all you have to do is scroll, zoom, and pan, and you can and create your report. So they add a level of efficiency that just wasn't possible before. And the other thing I'll mention, which I didn't mention earlier in the discussion, was it actually creates a team environment. So when we're working with our scribes, like you're working in a team and there's like a lot of casual banter going back and forth. And it's a lot of fun actually, because you're not just in a silo working by yourself, like you're working with other people. So it kind of recreates the reading room a little bit, but in a much more fun environment, because the scribes are just dedicated to helping you. They're not working for anybody else. So, you know, phone calls to ER doctors and anybody else, I mean, they'll take care of all that for you. So basically what I tell radiologists is, you know, it's very possible for me to increase your productivity 50 to 100% with the use of scribes. We had a radiologist with a big box company who was doing about 8 RVUs an hour before scribes. And with our scribes, same big box company, software, workstation, everything was doing 15 RVUs an hour, like a near double increase in productivity, same amount of time.
So is the scribe online with you while you're reading a case?
Yeah, they're in the workstation with you. Yeah, we sign a
Okay.
HIPAA agreement. They sign a HIPAA agreement with us. So, you know, they'll actually pick the case from the list. They know how to, they're trained to go for the stattiest cases first. So if it's a code stroke, it'll be at the top, and then they'll pick that. They'll look for the contrast dose, radiation dose, history, relevant priors, are the recons there? They'll do all that QC work up front. And then when they're ready to display the case, they'll put a flag up so I can see it. And then I know they're ready. And then I'll scroll through. They'll tell me the history, like a resident would present it to me. So it's an 82-year-old female. She fell down. She has some mental status changes. No priors for comparison, right? And I'll go through, I'll talk my finding. I'll say, okay, there's some moderate atrophy here. There's an old lacunar infarct in left basal ganglia and mild left side mastoiditis. And that's it, I'm done. Now the scribe will take what I just said, use my macros and create the report.
Nice.
And then does it go in our queue to sign it, or like?
No, it's real time. It's right on the screen, real time. Like you'll see it happening on your screen. So you'll see.
And then they go and like reach the doc for you and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So in between, like while they're reaching the doc, the next case is scribeless while they're doing it, right?
No, you'll have a scribe on the next case on a different screen.
Oh, a
different
different
workstation.
one.
Yeah, you're working with multiple workstations, multiple scribes. That's how you're going to gain the efficiency. So while they're working in that workstation, you're now looking at another screen, which is another workstation, and you're looking at, let's say it's a complicated chest appel, and you're just talking your positive findings. You know, you're saying, okay, there's, you know, some atelectasis, lung bases, moderate emphysematous changes, moderate changes of thoracic spine. No evidence of PE, aorta's negative. I don't even say the negative findings. They just tell them the positive findings. You know, and then you just go through it and you're done. Like, then you go to the next workstation. Now that scribe is working on that report and so on and so forth. So I do it with 6 workstations. By the time I'm done with the 6th, all my reports are starting to pop up.
So when you say 6 workstations, like you're jumping like through with a KVM, or like you just have different windows open?
Well, I
have
have
like a 6.
Yeah, I have 6 55-inch screens, and I wrote an article on LinkedIn that you can see. It shows a picture of my setup.
Yeah,
And
I think I've seen that.
Yeah. So it's 6 55-inch screens, and they all display a different workstation. So, and I use these rollerball mice like this. It's like this. So
Yeah.
I don't have to like move my arm around for every single, like it's none of that. It'll be 6 of these, and all I'm doing is just going like this, right? So it's very easy for me to scroll through and move through images. And you know, I just tell them verbally like the report's good to sign, and they'll just sign it. So I don't, and then they're going off and they're displaying the next case. So it's very efficient.
Well, and the other thing too is, you know, you can start with 2, build to 3,
Yeah.
build to 4. So for him, you know, 6, 7 scribes, just depending on who he's reading for that night. But
Yeah.
you mentioned, you know, they make the report and then call the physician, and it's actually they're making the report and calling the physician at the same exact time. So it's not like one consecutively after another. It's all as efficient as possible. So it really just speeds up the workflow, and then you get more volume in and whatnot, and the team environment, like what Dr. Sami said. It's very fun.
It's a lot of fun. I tell you, like the first thing we notice is that we're just having a ball. right? It's like a lot of fun doing radiology again. And then we also have students, fourth year medical students who are teleradiology externs who rotate with us. So if we see interesting cases, like we go into like, okay, why is this, you know, interesting? What's the pathology here? And we can stop and take a little, you know, like educational detour. We have the time to do it because scribes are making reports. And, you know, it just brings the fun back into teleradiology. Like it's just much more of an enjoyable practice again.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Do you guys do the training?
Yeah, we do the training. We train the scribes. They're our employees. They'll work with you. They'll adapt to your workflow. And I'll talk about like what kinds of people the scribes are. So when I initially started working with scribes like 5 years ago, we started with Caribbean med school graduates who are applying to residency because they had the thinking there was they have the substrate of knowledge, like medical knowledge. They don't know anything about radiology, but at least they understand medical terminology. Like if I tell them cardiomegaly, they know what that means. And they work out great, and they still work out great. And then we said, okay, well, what about pre-med students? Because then we had pre-med students from college kids asking to work with us, and we put them through our training program. And some of our best scribes have been recent college graduates or pre-med students. And then we said, well, what about if we just took any random person off the street and trained them to be a radiology scribe? Can we do that? And in fact, we did. We had one gal that worked with us for years, and she worked at a pet store after high school for 9 years and did nothing else. Like she didn't know anything about medicine or scribing or radiology or whatnot. And she turned out to be one of our best scribes. And so, I mean, it's the training program, and then just seeing stuff over and over again. Some of the scribes get so good at recognizing pathology, like they'll look at the images, right? And they'll be seeing what I say about the images. So we had a college student, and she was a pre-med, and she had only been working with us like 4 months. And she looked at the chest X. She's like, yeah, it looks negative, Dr. Stoney. I'm like, all right, yeah, that's negative. And then after a while, she'd be like, yeah, there's an infiltrate in the medial segment of the right middle lobe. It's pneumonia. And there's a tiny little right effusion. And I look at it and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly right. She's like, here's your report.
She actually, I have to chime in because it
Yeah.
was amazing. She got so good. Her specialty, and I say that seriously, became MRIs of the shoulders.
She loved MRIs of the shoulders, and she got really good at them.
Yeah.
She's a college kid. She was 22 years old, and she knew the rotator cuff, she knew the biceps tendon, the labrum, the AC joint. Yeah, she knew. I mean, she got really good at it. She just loved it. And I mean, she could look at an MRI of the shoulder and start to make the report. I mean, like pretty good. So, you know, obviously, I mean, I'd read the whole case and she'd be like, all right, here's the report. And like 80% of what I said is already there. Right. So some of the people who work with us, they really want to learn this, and they want to, because they can't learn radiology anywhere else. Right. It's one thing to learn radiology information, like you can go to a YouTube video and learn a lot of information, but it's a totally separate thing to learn radiology judgment, right? They don't really, so you go to residency to learn how to increase your judgment skills. Like, is that an infiltrate? Is that opacity real? Is that a mock line? Is that all the things that we learned in residency? So cool. So I know we talked a lot about, so we talked about scribes, fair detail. Does anybody else have any questions about teleradiology in general, like the radiologist market? Like, what are people seeing out there? Let me ask a question. What are you guys seeing out there that you've noticed trends in teleradiology over the past year, let's say?
I mean, definitely the demand has gone up a lot. Like, I subscribe to a lot of recruiters just to kind of see what's going on.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's definitely you know, the employees market from what it seems.
Yeah.
I changed jobs about like a little less than a year ago.
Yeah.
Just because it was like so much more attractive, the new job.
Right. Yeah. And did you change into a W-2 job, or are you working teleradiology?
Well, I did change. It was a 7-on-14. I do a couple things.
Yeah.
I do like nutrition consulting, adverse event reporting for like I've been doing that since before residency. I do like
Yeah.
clinical trials, and I have some other like 1099 radiology stuff locally. But this was I was 7 on 7 off Nighthawk, and I switched to 7 on 14 off second shift. And
Okay.
it's in Florida. I'm in California, so you know the hours favor me a little bit.
Yeah.
I was W-2, and then it turned out that their healthcare plan did not work in California. So I couldn't find coverage of, like, there was no one in their network here. So they're like, we can pay you $50K more and take away all your benefits and put you on 1099. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. And I have my own healthcare. It's $2,000 a month. I get it through Blue Shield. It's an HSA program, so I put into my HSA as well through that. And I manage my own, manage my own 401k and
Perfect.
And I can do more than that because I could do profit sharing. So I can, and I do it for me and my wife. So I can basically put up to 160K a year in my retirement. Like if I wanted to,
That's
between
perfect.
the 401k and the profit sharing.
You're exactly the kind of radiologist that we love working with, because you're independent minded, like you're saying all the right things, right? I wish every teleradiologist would hear that and be like, okay, that's exactly the way we want to do this, right?
I mean, that being said, it was a lot of work to get that stuff set up, getting the 401k set up. You got to coordinate with your accountants back and forth, and then with like IRA company, and then like getting the healthcare. Like it's all it's a lot more effort, but then like just doing your enrollment for your 401k through your W-2 job, it's a lot easier to do that. But you can make things work to your advantage, and obviously you could deduct you could deduct everything, like
exactly
meals and see you later, gas, and things are a lot, especially in California. Like you kind of have to, because we get kind of reamed with taxes pretty bad.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I would just wish, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, I wish every teleradiologist would do it that way. Yes, it's some work and some effort to set up, your 401k, your health insurance, all that. It is money and time so well spent for your long-term health and career benefit. Plus, you can do what you want. You now are in charge of your teleradiology career. Like, you don't have to go in the direction the practice is going. Like, you can do what you need to do to create your own independent teleradiology practice, and you're open to opportunity. You're not paying an opportunity cost by being locked into something that's not going in your favor, right, over time. Like, too many teleradiologists just think, let's just do the easiest thing, right? And that may not be the most beneficial thing for the radiologist to do. So kudos to you. I mean, you're hitting all the right notes on everything you just said.
Yeah, I think one thing that was important, I did this even in my previous job, like right out of fellowship, like during my interview, I told them I have side stuff that I do. And like, so then, when we made the employment agreement, it was already baked in. It was already baked into the contract that like, these are the exceptions of like, I could do this, I could do that, I could do moonlighting. And basically like one of them was my own medical corporation was listed. So anything that is under the purview of my medical corporation, like any other job I take, if it pays to the medical corporation and I'm employed through that, it's fair game for moonlighting. I don't have to run it by the employer or anything. But the benefit of the 1099 is, I'm not committed to anything. I'm on 7/14 off, 7 on 14 off, but my other jobs, like they basically just email me like a month before, being like, "What's your availability next month for this or that and this or that?" And I if I'm busy the next month or I want to take a vacation, I just tell them I'm not available. And I still have my 7 on 14 off, and at this point I could probably leave that and then just pick up stuff as I go here and there. And it's a little more coordinating, but I don't know, you just put it in your calendar. It's not that bad.
Yeah, and the great thing about that is then every opportunity kind of has to stand on its own merits, meaning that you're doing it because you want to do it and it makes sense for you, not because like you're forced to do it. I was talking to a radiologist recently, and very frustrated in an employed position he's in right now. He's having to do so-called equity shifts and all kinds of like, oddball shifts and this, that, and the other thing. He's an associate, and he has the ability to do independent work as long as he gets permission from the practice. So we started talking about 6 months ago, and they kept dilly-dallying, the practice owners kept dilly-dallying and saying, well, we're going to meet next week and next month and all that. So they strung him along for, gosh, probably 4.5 months before he just finally just said, you know what, I'm done. I give you notice. And then
Yeah,
like
that exact thing happened to me, like literally the same thing.
is that right? And then what they
Well,
say?
a little bit different because I signed the contract for the new job while they were still dilly-dallying, because I knew that they weren't gonna, come to the things that I needed, the things that I
Yeah.
told them. I mean,
Yeah.
I basically sent them my new contract. I'm like, can you guys match this? If you can't,
Great.
then and I sent it way in advance, and they took like 3 months to figure it out. I'm like, I'm not waiting these 3 months. It takes 6 months to get credentialed. So let me
There you
just accept the new job now, let them ponder, and it's like kind of a slow breakup. And then I still work for them. I still work for them part-time. And I
There you
told
go.
them, I'm like, I'm already credentialed. I've already done all this stuff. Like, you can keep me on as a floater. If you guys get really busy, let me know and I can help use your list.
Yeah.
So
That's perfect. Yeah.
And that saved me from paying tail as well. So, they're still covering my malpractice. I help out when they need. Everyone kind of wins in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think, before like the exploding volumes of today, and the radiologist shortage, I mean, all the chips were held by, practice owners and the big box companies. And now, I think the pendulum has swung, and it's probably going to keep swinging in favor of the radiologist for a long time, I think, my personal opinion, because too many things are aligning and happening in the radiologist's favor, to
I
keep
think it's the
swinging that up.
mid-levels. I think that's the primary driver. It's the mid-levels. They don't know what they're doing and they just order a bunch of stuff.
Yep, absolutely
Because
correct.
I see the more and more, I see it's not just the volumes going up. It's easy, inappropriate cases of normal people that get like a MRI, MRA, MRV for like a headache that like went away.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate. And it sucks. And it's terrible for the healthcare system, but I
Yes.
can't deny that I don't benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, we're doing our part, right? Like we're doing what's asked of us. Like someone's going to do this job, like someone's going to have to do this job, right? And so we're doing our part, but we're doing it on our terms, right? I think we're doing it more in an independent manner, in a way that actually better serves the patient, I feel. And that's going to be better for our profession. I mean, we're trying to grapple with all this volume. And how do we do it? Like we can't keep working the way we used to be working. I remember, I used to work in an on-site practice. I had a hospital employed job when I first got out of fellowship. And then when I went into teleradiology, back then all the rage was a 7 on and 7 off schedule. And a lot of my colleagues back then said, oh, you're such a slacker, you're taking 26 weeks off vacation, and you have such an easy schedule, and you're not, hardly working, this, that, and the other thing. And I remember back to that time, I mean, the work was not as complex or as difficult as it is now, right? So, I mean, I could work 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., 7 on, 7 off. And we didn't have like every other case be a CTA head and neck or a CT chest and Powell. Like there were CTs, there were a lot of non-contrast brains, a lot of renal stones. It was a more manageable workflow. Now, I think, one of the driving factors for the 7 on, 14 off is when you do an evening shift or a graveyard shift, I mean, it's like extremely complicated cases, huge volumes of mostly cross-sectional imaging. Like it's very easy to get burnt out, and yeah, 7 on, 7 off is just not working anymore for people. And now it's like 7 on, 14 off. Like what's next, right? The next iteration that I'm getting asked for is, believe it or not, 7 on, 21 days off. I had a couple of radios asked about that. Yeah.
that works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing when I signed my 7 on, 7 off job, at that time it sounded so appealing, but when you realize and it was a Nighthawk, you basically you don't have a single full weekend off, because you're either coming on a Sunday night or you're coming off on a Saturday night. So you never have a full weekend. you're always either coming off or coming on. With at least 7 on 14 off, now at least I have like, you know, a guaranteed like at least 2 weekends off per month.
Yeah, which is huge. I
So-
mean, I think,
Yeah.
you know, in the past, it was like, you couldn't, in a 7 on 7 off schedule, you couldn't really take a trip anywhere. You couldn't get on a cruise ship. Like, I remember I used to work for a big box company, and we wanted to take a cruise one time, and it involved like 2 more days, like, and it was like one time in the year, and this is 6 months in advance, and they basically like, no, this is not gonna work. Like, it was just like heavy handed, like, no, like, you know, you have to work half the weekends, half the holidays, you know. I mean, it was very heavy handed and all that. And I think radiologists are just voting with their feet, and they're like, they're just not gonna do it. Like, there just isn't, the bodies aren't there anymore, right? For the increased volume and whatnot. So it's a different world we live in. We hear horror stories every day. I talk to a lot of big box company, big practice radiologist refugees who are looking for something else. They're just shell shocked. I mean, I talked to a fair number of shell shocked radiologists who are just completely miserable in what they're doing. And you know, sometimes they have to drink the Kool-Aid and kind of move things along because they just don't know what else is out there, right? Maybe they're locked in a W-2 situation and they're paying a huge opportunity cost and 6 month notices. Like, I mean, I thought that was a thing of the past, but I talked to radiologists and they have to give 6 months notice to get out of something. I mean, it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
Yeah. So cool. So, hey, Zane, I just saw you joined. I think that was you with your baby, cute baby.
Yeah,
there.
it's me. It's me. Sorry. I was
That's
feeding
great.
her downstairs. How's it going, guys?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks for
6
joining.
months, 6 months is awful.
Yeah.
Suffering right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be 90 days. Like, a lot of on-site groups had 90 days. I don't know where it went to 6 months. But yeah,
I think it's a relic of an old contract that they just haven't updated in a really long time.
yeah.
I mean, the way I see it, it's like it takes like 6 months to get credentialed anyway. So what's the difference? You know, like you give your notice, and by the time that 180 days is over, then you're fully credentialed.
Yeah,
Right?
that's not true. That's actually not true, Mike.
Maybe not. Maybe, I mean, the places I've worked all had that. Like one of them took a year.
Yeah.
Well, their
I'll tell
contract
you.
with 22 hospitals. It took them a year to get all 22 on
Is that in
board.
California?
Yep.
Yeah, we know about California. Yeah, I mean, so we've gotten radiologists credentialed and reading in as little as 72 hours.
That's amazing.
So, and it's nothing about us. It's like, it all depends on, I mean, our staff is amazing. I mean, these guys are second to none. And you'll get a chance to interact with them if you get to know them a little bit. I mean, they're amazing. But even with, you know, how amazing our staff is, that necessarily isn't enough to get through the credentialing. It really depends on the hospital motivation, right? It's just like in real estate, you want to work with motivated sellers. Well, we work with motivated hospitals, and they can cut through a lot of the red tape pretty quick if they want to. So a lot of our places, 2 weeks, 30 days, 45 days, they can move mountains, right? So it depends on who you're talking to. So I think, so for like the retail radiologist, like if you're an individual radiologist talking to different practices and talking to individual hospital employee positions, the recruitment arc is 6 months. Like they're picking and choosing, they're taking their time. Somebody's retiring 6 months from now or 9 months from now, and they're planning now, right? Which is fair, which is fine, right? We're talking to entirely different people. We talk to hospitals and radiology practices where the group imploded. They have no hospital employed radiologists. They're depending on on-site locums, and it's a merry-go-round revolving door of people on site. They don't have bodies to come in. They need coverage yesterday, right? And so we work with a fair number of hospitals like that. It's a completely separate conversation. These are two separate worlds we're talking about, right? So yes, I agree with you at the retail radiologist level. If you're looking to W-2 employed contract or even a long-term 1099, it could be a 6 month arc, right? Their needs are often not even now, it's like 6 months from now. So they can take their time and pick and choose and do all that. Our clients, a lot of hospitals we work with, it's very short, 30 days, 45 days, that sort of thing. So yeah, so it's 2:48. We have 12 more minutes. Are there any other topics you guys want to ask about that we haven't talked about yet?
Sure. Quick question is, how specialized do you see some of these practices? Do you prefer people with, let's say, more MSK knowledge, neuro knowledge, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've gone to several conferences this year. I went to a head and neck conference in Denver, and I met a ton of radiologists there. And I realized like the neuro guys tend to be more pigeonholed than anybody else. Like they only want to read from here, like the brain or the head and neck or the spine. A lot of our clientele are community level hospitals are just looking for bread and butter coverage. So you kind of have to be able to read everything. I feel like that's kind of like the biggest need. A lot of the places that have like subspecialty needs and coverage, they're already being handled by like big groups that have 150 radiologists, and then they can have like 20 neuro guys and 15 MSK guys and, you know, the breast guys and gals and, you know, body guys and gals and so forth. And they can do all that distributed workflow. They sometimes get into trouble because if they lose 3 MSK people, then now it's like, okay, what do we do? Like nobody else reads MSK. But like our clientele, it's really just ERs, stats, inpatient stats. So you got to be able to read kind of everything. We haven't done the whole subspecialty workflow. I don't think we ever will at this point, unless we get, you know, very, very big, like, you know, 200 radiologists. I don't see an advantage right now from where we stand to doing subspecialty stuff. Now, we do have some clients that ask for, hey, do you have a neurorad? And we oftentimes have a neurorad. We'll be like, all right, can you jump on the neurorad list and clean stuff out, you know, during your shift? And we'll accommodate those kind of requests. But in general, our rads are kind of just covering everything when they're working. Yeah.
What do you do in the cases that you're working in? You find one of those specialized cases that are kind of outside your area of expertise?
Yeah, it's a great question. It happens a lot in neuroimaging, right? So you're working and then you get, let's say, you know, a CT brain and there's a enhancing mass and, you know, and the patients, oftentimes the patient's known to the facility, they've had multiple prior MRIs and CTs. So at that point, at least in our practice, like our radiologists will consult each other and we'll talk to each other. I'm always available to the rads if there's something difficult. If it's something truly, you know, beyond their expertise and they're looking for something very, very specific, like progression of a mass, and they're reading it between aortic ruptures and code strokes, we'll do like a prelim report and tell them, hey, there's no infarct, we don't see a hemorrhage. This will be read by a neurorad and we'll follow up the next day. At least we'll get the emergent things taken care of. So it's really the only instances I can think of where that's happened is in neurorad, where like MRI brains and mass follow-ups for whatever reason the patient came in at midnight and had multiple priors to compare. And then also in body imaging, some of the MRI abdomens with the liver and that sort of thing. So some of those subspecialized things our rad will do like a prelim report, and then we'll follow up with the site next day. Hey, there's a prelim in there. We have a protocol for that. So they'll first reach out to the rest of us, and then if we can't help, then we'll do a prelim, and then the next day they'll a radiologist on site or one of their subspecialized rads will do a final dictation. Do you guys have any questions for our staff? Like we've got our wonderful staff haven't really said anything much yet, and haven't been given an opportunity to ask a question. But one thing I will say is our staff are extremely helpful. Like if you get to know them and work with them, like getting all your documents organized is a huge, huge priority. It should be a huge priority for you. So for example, your wall certificates, your licenses, your CAQH profile, all your, if malpractice claims, if any, reformatting your CV, you'd be surprised how many CVs we see that are really janky looking, that look just terrible. They're just in Word format, they're just not aligned, they're not, so these guys can reformat your CV, and we'll do this for free for anybody actually. They'll reformat your CV into like a beautiful graphical format that's logically oriented with all your licenses on there, all that kind of stuff. So if you want that, just feel free to reach out to these guys and we can coordinate that for you.
Yeah, even if you're not very organized, if you just get your documents to us, we organize them for you. We're here to support.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I'll say is that these guys, we're kind of like a radiologist concierge service. So anything and everything that you've had in terms of your background, your documents and all that stuff, by virtue of you guys working with us, we can organize all that into a coherent file that, you know, you'll have for yourself, right? For anything you do. Like it's a lot of radiologists thank us for just organizing their entire life into one file that's easy to work with.
I think Dr. Kazi can attest to that, because he and I were even texting last night as I'm seeing things popping up and I'm like, this is amazing. Here's another Dr. Kazi document.
Yeah.
It's really awesome the way you guys have the system set up. It's like phenomenal, and just like the real-time feedback you get from the team is really nice, and it's just it's awesome. Like it's beneficial to you, I think, to get into the system with the Chicago Teleradiology, because like now in the future, if I ever want to do anything else, all of this stuff is just so perfectly arranged, all right there. Like doing
Thanks.
Yeah, these guys are awesome. Really amazing, really amazing.
Yeah, awesome and very accessible. Like, so, you know, you can pick up the phone. Like if you're working with us, we have a WhatsApp chat with all of us on there, and like you can message at 2 a.m. and somebody will probably respond within 5 minutes, right? Like somebody's around or somebody's up, you know. So yeah, it's like we're really accessible. We're a boutique teleradiology practice. We don't aim to be like a big box company with a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. Like we like this personal kind of feel, and you know, we're definitely growing. So, you know, maybe a year from now, might be a lot more people on this call and a lot more staff, but for now we're very boutique-y and very radiologist centric as a practice.
I have a question about your client hospitals. Yeah, I saw that you have a lot of openings for a lot of them. So it looks to me like they have just huge volumes. And what do they do with the overflow that Chicago Telerad can't take? Like, are they using multiple Telerads? And
yeah, I mean, so yeah, a lot of the sites use multiple Telerads. They're piecing together coverage best they can. They have some on-site coverage. They're using, you know, a few teleradiology companies possibly. A lot of things are in flux right now at many sites around the country. They're looking for solutions though. In the old days, you'd have an RFP process, and you still have an RFP process at a lot of places where they're looking for a group to come in and just solve all their problems. But what's happening is that groups are not being able to solve all their problems because of on-site requirements, not enough meat on the bone from insurance reimbursements, just exploding volumes of cases. And we've talked to groups where they were treading above water, you know, say for example, one group we talked to, 12 radiologists, they had 2 radiologists leave, and then all the rest of the burden fell on the group. And then suddenly they couldn't take vacations. Their W-2s were like promised vacations, and like, oh, we can't do vacations until we hire another person. Well, 6 months of that, and nobody's like happy, and like they started giving the notices, and the group implodes. And then they give notice to the hospitals, like, you know, all our rads are going here and there. Well, now the hospital needs to figure stuff out, like, and they need to figure out quickly. So that's scenarios where they'll get in touch with us. And like, hey, we need like 3 or 4 FTEs right away, and we don't know if we're ever going to be able to like really find anybody to come on site. So hospitals are having to rely more and more on offsite coverage than ever before, and it's a reality that's here to stay, I think, for a long time.
I guess a corollary to that.
Yeah.
What happens, let's say, with the folks working with you? Let's say I'm done with an 8-hour shift, and there's a whole bunch of work left, and you're pretty tired.
Yep.
What happens there?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we never promised the hospitals the sky and the moon. right? Again, it goes back to, we do what's realistic, right? Like, so if there's too many cases left at the end of the shift, that means we didn't have enough radiologists on working during the shift, right? So, if there's a lot of cases on and it's the end of your shift, you're done, like you're off and that's it. And we have a conversation with the hospital to say, look, you know what, it's like, we had 4 radiologists on, it was, you really needed 7. And we've got all this extra work. And now the next set of radiologists have to pick up that load. We need to talk about adding more radiologists. And that's when we add more radiologists. We're like, okay, yeah, that's what's going to take. It's going to take 7 radiologists to do this. Maybe there was a private practice group in the past that did it with 1 radiologist, right? And it was a new W-2 associate employee who just had to put in his or her time and just suffer for 2 years and do that and read 300 cases in a shift, and they just made it happen. But now that's gone, and they have to pay actual market rates for somebody to actually cover, and they realize it's going to actually take 3 radiologists to do that. So we have that conversation with the hospital as that progresses. So, but to answer your question, yeah, nobody's sticking around to kill themselves at the end of their shift. Any other questions? We got one more minute left, and this has been tremendous fun. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Let me answer that for you too.
Yeah.
Because everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's used to being in a situation where their remuneration is based on what you read, and you get this list anxiety, and you just keep pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding, and whether it's 45 cases an hour or what. And when you are salaried or employed and you have a fixed salary, there's no benefit to reading 4 times the person that's next to you, who reads, say 1/4 of what you read, but the work still needs to get done. By the same token, when you're doing it per click, you can wear yourself out the same way, but I can see that's more appealing because then at least you can tally the math in your head. But when you're working kind of at a reasonable pace, and you realize that it forces the people that are having their contracts covered, whether it's a hospital or group, to really pay you what you're worth, because you forget on the other end, they're collecting. The hospital's collecting boatloads on what you're doing. And so, once you kind of change your mindset a little bit, say, wait a minute, I don't feel bad. It's like they just collected, they're billing global, the hospital's global billing. Some of these guys put $10,000 for a CT. If they want it covered right and correctly, then it's worth having the right amount of people doing it. So you're not, so you have a long-term career that you're not having people burn out and bailing out because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that answer, Eric. Yeah, I would echo exactly everything Eric said. It's really, the hospitals take a tremendous amount of profit on these exams. And in the old days, the professional fee was divided, and these are the ratios I heard. And I'm talking about the 90s and probably earlier. It was about 70% technical, 30% professional. But when they started employing radiologists, they started to negotiate with insurance carriers. They were like, all right, let's make the technical 90% and the professional 10%. And that would squeeze the private groups. They had to make do with 10%. And now I think that ratio is somewhere 95% technical and 5% professional. So it's like there's not enough to sustain it there, but they're still getting the 95%. So I don't know what the exact numbers are, but those are kind of like, it's the outline. Somebody who's like really involved in billing and understands that stuff may echo some of what I say. And if anybody watching this, if you have expertise, please just email us and let us know. But yeah, to Eric's point, I mean, there's a lot of meat on the bone from the hospital standpoint. And when we talk to hospitals, they want quality coverage, and they want coverage for the hospitals. They don't want chaos in the ER and on the list. So they will pay for the coverage and make sure that service level is still being maintained. Because if they don't, the alternative is not acceptable to them, right? If they don't do that, if they don't have radiology coverage, and if they can't offer radiology, they have to shut down the hospital. So that's a whole can of worms that they never want to go down that path on.
And I just want to follow up one more thing too with Dr. Xavier's question about what do you do when there's 35 cases left on the list and you're done? And I have our rads asking all the time, they'll text me at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Oh my gosh, what do I do? This is the end of my shift, but there's all this going on. I said, we're not here to abuse you. You've done your duty for the day.
Yeah.
You're done, go to sleep, watch a movie, do whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, really, I can do that? And absolutely you can do that.
Yeah.
Because we want to make this a great opportunity for you. And like I said, not abuse you. You've done your duty, you're done.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, for us, radiologist wellness is a big part of this. Like the part of the reason I started Chicago Telerad and why we're doing it the way we're doing is I've just talked to so many radiologists who are just incredibly burnt out and who just start hating radiology, right? Like I've talked to radiologists who just want to quit altogether. And it's really kind of that cohort, which I want to make sure doesn't leave our specialty, because what's going to happen if we lose, a third of our radiologist workforce and they've gone on to do other things because they're just too burnt out? Well, if we can figure out a way to make them more productive, do reasonable amount of work and decrease their stress and keep them in the specialty, that's really kind of our way of giving back and keeping more radiologists engaged. Because like, who's going to take care of us when we get sick, right? All of us at some point are going to need healthcare services. And I shudder to think like what happens when you're in an emergency room and you had a CTA head and neck done and you're not getting a report for 5 hours, right? Like that's not uncommon. CT brain perfusion studies, 4 hours, no report, because there's just nobody to read it. The big box company is just way understaffed, right? And so that old model of is crumbling right in front of us. The pay-per-click RVU based, get credentialed at 500 hospitals and hopefully 30 radiologists can cover it all. It's just crumbling, right? Now it's much more of we need dedicated radiologists, whatever the FTE workload is for that shift, let's put 2 or 3 or 4 radiologists on that, and they're available. They can talk to doctors, they can do a reasonable amount of work, they can get reports turned around in a reasonable time, 30 minutes, right? 15 minutes for a code stroke. So, as long as we're meeting that, then, it's a win-win situation. Cool. So any other final thoughts from anybody else? And then we'll close the session. Well, great. Well, thank you guys all for joining, and we hope to do this on a weekly basis. So stay tuned to the email list. I know there's going to be a lot more in future meetings, but this is wonderful. And thank you guys for joining. And there'll be a recording of this session in our private Facebook group. So there's a link in the email that you got to join our private Facebook group. And we're going to record all these and store those in there. All right.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you
Okay.
so much,
Take
everyone.
care. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.